Okay. All right. So welcome everyone to Austin Design Week, actually to the very end of Austin Design Week. This is our second to last event. Our final event is just following this, and we do hope that you stick around for that as well. That event is going to have the multi-instrumental and multi-talented Mobley. It's a free concert, so do come to that. And as always, you can connect with Austin Design Week through the social media by tagging at Austin Design Week. And there's also a Slack workspace that you can join and continue the conversation with some of the people that you've met. In the Zoom chat, we'll be able to find some links for some of that stuff as well. And we also want to say a big thank you to all of our partners. That these sponsors are what keeps Austin Design Week alive. We have IBM, Matthews Protestio, the Zebra, Frog, Label Collective, and Marketing 360. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Kelsey and Cheryl, our speakers for today, and they have a great story to share with us. So Kelsey, I will give it over to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kaylee, and welcome everyone. We're glad you're here. Thanks for spending your Friday evening with us. Let us know that you're here in chat, whether you're here in Austin with us or elsewhere. Shout out, let us know where you're joining us from. My name is Kelsey Gray. I am faculty at UT in the School of Design and Creative Technology. We've had the immense pleasure of having Cheryl Miller as our designer in residence for the fall. She's been giving lectures, joining classes. There will be a portfolio review. We're all very excited. So it's been such a pleasure to work with Cheryl. And we're very happy to be partnering with Austin Design Week on this. So a few notes before we get going and before I hand it over to Cheryl. Please use chat. Keep it energized, keep sharing. If there's something that you love, that you want to share, we want to see it, we want to hear it. And if there are any tech issues we can view chat, so do let us know in chat. That's a good way to communicate with us as well. If you have questions, because I am sure that you will, please use that Q&A function at the bottom, kind of in your taskbar in Zoom. If you hover over, there's a little Q&A button. Go ahead and ask your questions there. Questions will be answered in the order that we receive them at the end of the lecture. So please put them there, not in chat. We may not see them if they're in chat. So I want to give Cheryl all the time, but I am going to introduce her. Even though she's a woman that needs no introduction, I'm going to do it anyway. So in 1987, Cheryl D. Holmes Miller, who's joining us today, wrote an article for print magazine called Black Designers Missing in Action as a part of her master's thesis at Pratt Institute. The notorious article shook the branches of the design community, calling out the profession for being predominantly white. Since then, she has dedicated her career to challenging the design profession, advocating for BIPOC and gender equality, and serving the BIPOC community with award-winning designs. In 2016, Cheryl wrote a follow-up article, also for print, entitled Black Designers Still Missing in Action, and a 4-part final volume that just came out here in 2020 called Black Designers Forward in Action. This last 4-parter completes this trilogy as she passes the baton to the next generation of designers. We want to share this writing with you. If you haven't read it yet, I'm going to drop a link in chat. Danielle's beating me to it. Love it. All right, great. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share screen and get this presentation rolling. Cheryl, welcome.
Listen, guys, Austin, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here, and I'm so happy Austin Design Week. I'm glad that we have space to share, and I want to thank, of course, University of Texas, Austin, and our great community there. We've had a great time. And so I thank you. And we have an hour to keep, and I want to make sure at the end we have an opportunity to, if you've ever been to any one of my lectures, I answer everything. Anytime, anything. You can find me on LinkedIn. I never had anyone. So I've always now, since 1974, availed myself to everyone. Okay, so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time introducing who I am. If you've been with me, then you know, and if not, sit back and enjoy. And I'm here, and we have been instructed to keep the hour. Okay, and maybe we can do follow up or anything. So anyway, I'm here with this particular lecture. It's very important. Where are the Black designers? I want everyone to know that this is a 50-year advocacy, and it has a history. So this is the story of where are the Black designers that has really gone viral with design and protest and technology and Instagram, and a new set of young scholars who have been asking the question. I want everyone to know that in this season of uncertainty and social unrest and change and everything that we're going through, that this advocacy we're not new to this, we're true to this. It started 50 years ago. And I'm going to give you that history so that you know there've been a lot of players who I want to have remembered. And it's not something that's novel. This is not just a moment, it's been a movement. And that's why we're here with this lecture, to share with you the history of the advocacy. I ran a firm in New York, Cheryl D Miller Design, and now I'm branded. I'm always asked about the business, the corporate communications firm that defined the civil rights era, storytelling of a socially disenfranchised, marginalized community. I am known for social impact, corporate communications, and graphic design. All of my work now, I have this Cheryl Miller, it has been collected at the Cheryl Miller Collection at Stanford University. I didn't know that this is what I was doing, but this was what I did. And a lot of my story is to tell you how I did it, okay? How I did it, and to inspire you to do even greater and more. I went to art school. So one of the things I lectured this, the importance for me then was, I knew from the time that I was very young that I wanted to be professional, and I took a stab of going to all of the ACAD schools, and I did. So there's the list, and I went to art school, and all of them on the East Coast. Uniquely, very uniquely, I am OG BIPOC, okay? This is not how I could identify when I was a young scholar, young designer. I'm a Black woman. I was raised culturally African-American, but I am your genuine OG BIPOC. I have a very, very interesting dynamic of family. We can go to the next slide. I have two parents of two different races, two different places, yielding four grandparents of four races, four places. I am BIPOC, all right? And when I was growing up, we could only identify with one, all right? And that would be African-American. My father's mother, my paternal grandmother, my father thought it was best that we collapse all into one drop, and we collapse into being African-American. And I'm from DC, and that's the way it was. But my mother brought to me a very interesting dynamic that's really the platform of my work and my scholarship about being diverse and very unique. Long story short, my maternal family is indigenous Danish West Indian. And this is the Virgin Islands. The Carnival cruise stopped the Virgin Islands. It wasn't always US Virgin Islands. It was Denmark owned. And my grandmother, who's in the middle, the fair-skinned older woman right in the middle, is my grandmother. And she's Danish Creole with a background of very interesting, the whole diaspora of the Danish West Indians. It's a mix of the Danish culture, specifically the Ghanaian diaspora, because Denmark was in business with the Ghanaian king. And when we talk about the transatlantic slave trade, my family are derivative works of the Danish Ghanaian slave trade. So all of the colonizers had slave trades. That's why it's called transatlantic. So the Brits, the French, the Dutch, we are Danish. And so from Christopher Columbus through the slave trade, we're Creole by Carib Indian, the Danish colonizers who were there, and the Ghanaian, the Ghanaian diaspora, my tribe. My great grandmother is at the top there, and at the bottom is her nephew. That's my cousin. And he found his way back to Ghana and was installed. And so if you go up the left side of the tree, I know all of my chiefs, all the way to the one in the center is the seal of the 1733 insurrection of St. John's, when the slaves revolted. They weren't slaves in Ghana. And when they got to St. John's, they're like, we're not having it. And so my tribe, we're artisans, we're shipbuilders, we are makers and carvers of wood, and we are the tribe that's known for the Ghanaian decorative coffins. Very interesting story. And what's very unique is my family's story is very well recorded, documented. Denmark released all types of census records and archives, and Denmark stole my family, 1770. And what's very unique, all of my family historical work we've done, I have Ghanaian maternal DNA. So I don't look African, but I hold the DNA from this story and this lineage. And it all comes from, this is it, very unique. And my mother found, my grandmother in the middle there, the United States, because of World War I and history and so forth, they were colonizing the Philippines. Woodrow Wilson was, 1913 was one of our most racist presidents, and he separated the armed services, took the coloreds and the Negroes out and segregated the armed services and put in the Filipinos for what they call the mess attendants, MA, which is basically your stewards, your cooks, your barbers. And my grandfather was a part of the Filipino American Navy that came to establish democracy, what we celebrate as Transfer Day, when the United States actually bought the islands from Denmark. My grandmother and her mixed race girlfriends worked the USO, and several of them met the Filipinos and married them. My grandfather married my grandmother and gave her 3 Filipino babies. And thus my mom is the Filipino lady in the story, in the picture here. Okay, we can go to the next slide. It's crazy, but it's true. And all of the maternal lineage has Ghanaian DNA. My father, you can see right there, he was white and American Indian. That's my great-great-grandmother. And my grandfather looked like a white man, but he was white and Indian. And my grandmother was African-American. So out of this story, I have one African-American grandmother who was my father's mother. I grew up through the civil rights. I was born before the civil rights. I grew up through the civil rights, and I practiced post-civil rights era. Just like the kids are doing the iPad, I was highly influenced with a brand new medium of radio to television, and Mickey Mouse and Walt Disney, and you guys had Bob Ross, and I had John Nagy. He would get up and draw charcoal drawings, and I got influenced and inspired early. I won my first, up at the top right in that little collage, I won my first art contest. I was a Girl Scout, 10 years old, ended up on the cover of Washington Post. I was influenced by the culture and the art of Washington, D.C. On the right, you see Alma Thomas and Sam Gilliam. They were the artists of color, African-American artists that were a part of a larger movement of contemporary art in Washington, the Washington Color Field School, which was a cadre that was slivered off of the New York contemporary movement of color field. They were influenced a lot of contemporary design and art in Washington. So I was raised with this affluence and influence to contemporary art, specifically color field. And also on a good day, Washington would take the kids to on a field trip. So we were always at the White House, we were always at the Portrait Gallery, we were always at the National Gallery of Art, a big art town. So I became exposed, and more specifically and uniquely, my mom was a nurse on the campus of Howard University, and I grew up in the museum school waiting to get a ride home from school during the time that the Afro-Cobra movement was happening in Chicago, and Jeff Donaldson was a key professor in Washington at Howard's Fine Art Department. And all of that art is going on, and I grew up with it. These are my influences: Afro-Cobra, the museums, and Color Field School, all of this. And I decided that I wanted to leave Washington, and I started, so you can locate me, I started school. There I am with my little, I look like I'm 16, well, I am 16. And I started college touring the day that Martin Luther King was assassinated. Next slide. What I didn't know was the year that Martin Luther King was assassinated, that the advocacy in New York City for Black designers was beginning. Here is your beginning note. Print magazine has been an advocate and an ally for designers of color for 50 years. And they published this first article in 1968. The author, the writer was Dorothy Jackson, and she was reporting on Dorothy E Hayes, who is one of our primary first Black graphic design female designers in New York City. And Print published Dorothy Jackson's article about Dorothy Hayes in 1968, first appearance of an awareness. The Black experience in graphic design, 1968, comes to the table of being published. I had no idea that this was going on when I was applying for college. Next slide, please. This is Dorothy E Hayes, who was really, I give her phase one of Where Are the Black Designers movement. Her work opened up public awareness and basically an awareness. And she was very much like myself, or I was like her. And her seat at the table in New York was more uncomfortable than mine, where I would give her 15 years in front of me. Okay, so remember now, I don't know this. I'm applying to school. 1968, 1969, Martin Luther King is assassinated. This is cyclical, a season of reparation. White default, and the dominant culture is feeling, what can we do to help? All the schools opened up, and I get an invitation. You can go to the next slide. I get an invitation to go to school, 1969. I'm applying. The white community is trying to issue out reparations. The same thing that's going on here now went on 50 years ago. And Print started writing right here. This is not new. And this is what I want you to know, that this is not new. This is 50 years old, guys. 50 years old, and it's time for it to end and change. 1969, I apply. And this is my first place of injustice I experienced. That's Miss Glassman, my white art teacher. Okay, there were two art teachers, one Black, one white. We had two art rooms with an art closet in between. And our graduating class, 69, 70, we had two kids in the art program that wanted to go to professional art school. Miss Snowden was a Black teacher. She had me, the Black kid, and Miss Glassman had the white kid. She had Stephanie. Okay, Stephanie wanted to go to Rhode Island. So Miss Glassman, what they weren't gonna do was give 2 admissions to Rhode Island School of Design out of 2 kids out of Washington public schools. Miss Glassman tried to get rid of me. Okay, so first thing she did was tell me, you're never going to be an artist. You're never going to be any good. You're never going to be an artist. Then they blocked my transcript. I couldn't get my transcript. Okay, they wouldn't send my transcript to RISD. Okay, so I said, okay. My father took note, and he just shook down the school until they released my transcript to RISD. Miss Glassman was trying to get me out of the way because she wanted Stephanie to get the admissions. One of us wanted to go to Pratt, and one wanted to go to RISD. Okay, she wanted to go to RISD, and actually I wanted to go to Pratt. And so what happens is the admissions came the other way. I went to Rhode Island and Stephanie went to Pratt. They weren't going to put two kids in the same place. And there's a whole nother kind of like backing into it. I had to read the tea leaves of the two of us, and RISD and its acclaim, they picked the best one. I never had a mentor. I never had any feedback. I've had to read the tea leaves. Cheryl, you won out over Stephanie, okay? In spite of the fact that Glassman tried to stop you and keep your transcript. This is all going on, and I have no idea, next slide, that the students are taking down 1970. They are demanding a Rhode Island School of Design. The same thing that they're demanding now in 2020, and many of the kids across the NASAD, ACAD school, all right, everybody, this takedown to decolonize just didn't start. And when I was researching for part 4, I had no idea that RISD students had demanded diversity on their campus in 1970. I had no idea of this until I got involved in researching and reporting for part 3 of my article. And I met the young scholars who were placing their demands, and they had a couple of documentaries. And I'm like, I am the OG BIPOC, okay? I landed in Solution in 1970. This is what's amazing. I could go on and on about RISD, in terms of 50 years, and the kids are still demanding. And so I had no idea when I was applying that Dorothy Hayes and this advocacy started and that there was a problem. I had no idea. Reparations came in, I got an invitation. You always hear me say, I got an invitation to go to RISD, I got an invitation to go to Wellesley. I could have gone to school with Hillary Clinton, go to the left or go to the right, English lit and be a writer, or go to the right and be an artist, be a designer. I went to the right. If I'd gone to the left, I'd be a writer, but I wouldn't have anything to write about. So now it flipped out. I went to design, and now I'm a writer and I got something to write about. This is Dorothy's work, okay? She put together a show, 49 designers, Black designers. These are your original New York 49 Black designers, 1970, 1 year after the assassination, the murder of Martin Luther King. There's your 50 years, right here, guys, right here. Your 49 Black designers and 5 women. And they put together this show, and in a response to the student all this is going on, and I have no idea. I'm just trying to apply to school because the doors are open, because the dominant community is feeling guilty. Let's get some reparation out. Let's help, okay? This is your first ally movement right here, okay? But I had no idea this was going on. So a part of the demand, RISD came up with the minority recruitment program, and they brought this show to campus. The show started in New York City, okay, at the Composing Room, and it was sponsored by Herb Lubalin. You all study him in your typography classes, and George Alden, who we call the first Black art director. He worked with William Golden, CBS. He's the first Black art director, CBS, in the 50s. Next slide. So the show started, and then it ended up at RISD, and RISD, in response to the March letter, 1970, brought 40 kids in from urban communities. We all got recruited in. Long story short, and you've heard in other lectures, I finished at MICA. My father passed away 2 2 weeks before my sophomore year, and I had to get back down to the Washington area. So I did freshman foundation at RISD and finished up at MICA. When I got to New York City, I wrote this thesis at Pratt. I'm zooming through this because I got to make it in 45 minutes. Long story short, Pratt gave me half of the degree based on my professional experience. I'd been pretty much an award-winning broadcast designer by the time I had gotten to New York City. And I'm a corporate wife. I didn't know how long I would be there. So I said, first thing, let me go to school. Went and introduced myself to Pratt. The graduate program had just started. They gave me half of the degree based on my performance as a professional for 10 years. I had to earn the rest, pay the tuition. When I got to the end, they said, Miller, you cannot do a design project as a thesis, capstone. I'm like, okay. We want you, Eitan Manassi was the chair of the department. He says, we want you to make a contribution to the industry. And I'm like, okay, so no design project for you because you think that'll be too easy for me and I'm gonna write my way out of this. Okay, so we wrote this infamous Pratt Institute article. I got a, and this is some of the dynamic when I lecture about capstone and thesis. You can graduate or you can really think about your future and make a capstone project that leads you into your future. And that's just what I did. He wanted me to make a contribution to the industry. Well, I did that and then some off of this infamous Pratt thesis. Okay, well, next slide. The thesis that I have a lecture on that too, which talks about the dynamic of trade writing and so forth. But the thesis, Print magazine opened up an avenue for the thesis to be featured as a feature article, and it's the next appearance of print publishing in 1987. I bought 200 copies of them. I'm understanding that you can eBay and Etsy, there are auctions for them. Okay, who would have thought that this Rembrandt with a pencil with in the back 2/3 in this article is eBay auctioned, okay, but it's got a history. So now 1987, we're moving along, and now I'm a trade writer and the advocacy is moving along. Okay, next, please. Immediately, it was immediately when the article got published to the industry, AIGA 1990, AIGA 1991. Carolyn Hightower was the president, and the forums and the diversity and inclusion initiatives began. My colleagues must be celebrated in this, and both of these newsletters for forums and initial discussions with AIGA, they all start the same way. Cheryl Miller Design, had no idea when she wrote the article. Carolyn Hightower was the president. She ushered in conversation. My peers who started the first diversity forum, the chair was John Morning, John Morning Design New York. We're all New York designers. Fo Wilson, Michelle Washington, Roger Tucker III, and myself, we are, and a woman by the name of Cross, Elsie Cross, was the kind of diversity psychologist. She is the mother of scholarship for diversity and inclusion corporate conversation. We started with the support of AIGA, the forums and the conferences, and here comes this question that is birthing from the advocacy is moving, we're missing, where are we? Now by 91, the forum is why is graphic design 93% white, removing barriers to increase opportunity, removing barriers to increase opportunities in graphic design. We met in New York City. These documents are available for those of you who are doing scholarship. You can read about the initial works for diversity, inclusion, design, equality, and inclusion. with AIGA. I began trade writing, and of course I'm running the studio, and the studio, you'll hear me in other lectures. It's important, you know, for me to share the design model and the uniqueness of my studio, and why Stanford would want all my work in a collection. But right along with it, I began keynoting, judging, and writing trade articles. Next slide. So my voice is blowing up in New York, and I'm writing. Okay, I'm writing and I'm designing, and I'm winning awards through the firm, and I'm keynoting and judging conferences. I mean, the you know, the different art, AIG Art Directors Club, all of the. Listen, I was a judge. Okay, Emmy Award winning judge, and I'm writing. And so in 2015 comes Where Are the Black Designers? Let it be known and let it be clear that Maurice Cherry, inspired by all of this legacy movement, he is the one who branded the exact words, where are the Black designers? That came from a presentation originally given SXSW Interactive March 14, 2015. He gave a presentation. Now, what's important about this history is to look at how the advocacy has moved. It started with Dorothy in awareness. I came to the table of conversation with scholarship. I'm your footnote lady. Everything I do is a footnote. I'm proving everything by footnotes. Jerry comes in and he's your statistician. He is your data man. He brings the data and the facts. All right. So all of this is moving. I'm applying to school. I've gotten 2 degrees. I'm writing. AIGA picks up 90, 91. Next slide, please. Cherry's documentary now, he's blogging on AIGA's platform. Where are the Black designers? It's moving forward. Okay, it has a history. I write again for print in 2016. Everybody's still looking for Black designers, still missing. Now the question, it's a mid-century question. Where are we? Where are we? We're missing, where are we? You know, why is it only white? White. So print comes and I write again, 2013. Next. Well, Maurice, he starts Revision Path and he's collecting our stories in his podcast. All right. And so I'm number 248, okay, which is an intimate detail all the way from the time I'm 3 years old. I tell this story, okay, of my whole journey. I mean, if you want listening music, you find Revision Path episode 248. Okay. He gets collected. He's the first podcast. 11 of his podcasts get collected at the Smithsonian's African American Museum. And he puts in episode 248 about Cheryl Miller. So Maurice takes me, he takes me to the Smithsonian. All right. It's moving. Where are the Black designers? This thing is moving. All right. So what we have now is, I think he got collected 2018. 2020, Mitzi Ozu, I think is her last name. They put together part 1 of my current print article starts right here, part 1. So when you read the 4-part of the last trilogy, I start right here in this discussion. It goes viral. Everything that's out, I am nearly zoomed out because all of the Black creatives, all of the Black designers, we have opportunity to, at large, talk about this across our platform. What has happened is that Mitzi and the young scholars and the technology with a new spin of how to actualize the advocacy takes it viral. If you want to understand what she did, it's in part one. I open up with a discussion of, oh my God, how did this I've been working on my whole life go viral like this after George Floyd was assassinated and killed, murdered. And how did this go viral in the middle of pandemic? Who is this? What is this? And Instagram is 30,000. I mean, the stats for this conference is on part one. I called Maurice. I said, Maurice, Twitter is going crazy. Is this you? And Maurice says, no, it's not me. So Mitzi and the young scholars have turned advocacy into a design protest challenge and awareness and birthed a really present ally movement. Here we are again in reparation, an ally movement. But I want you to see and know this history. Dorothy started at 1970. I wrote 1985. I'm published 1987. AIGA starts 1990. Cherry starts asking the question, it's his term, where are the Black designers? 2015. 2016, I write again. Are we still missing? Where are we? Okay, 2018, my work gets collected at Stanford, the Cheryl Miller collection at Stanford, where all of the intricate cassette recordings, all of the drafts for all of this scholarship is in my collection. I'm leaving it for you, the scholars of the future, to study myself and my colleagues, so that you all will write. You will write. You must write and do your scholarship. Cherry gets collected 2019. Here's your statistician. So this is how it's moving. Scholarship is moving it. Data is moving it. And then it goes viral. Hashtag WATBD goes viral 2020. And the ally movement to take a pledge toward the advocacy to do something about this thing that's been going on before I even knew when I was applying. Okay, I got my first taste of it with Miss Glassman, who said to me, you're gonna be nobody in this, and tried to keep me from Rhode Island School of Design. Okay, so here we are. This is your history and found, okay, found in action. The 4 parts, I take my time because I'm not writing this anymore. And in the 4th part, I give you the history of the slave artisan who is your first erasure in graphic design history. And my LinkedIn zinger is Hollis, Drucker, and Meggs. Start off with graphic design history in Egypt, North Egypt, and North Africa. And I'm here to tell you, I don't care how they cut it and spin it, if it starts in Egypt, Egypt is in Africa, and Black and graphic design is Black. The history is Black graphic design. It starts in Egypt, and the last time I looked at my geography, Google Maps, Egypt is in North Africa. And after that point, the erasure of the slave artisan whose career is documented in the runaway slave ads all through the transatlantic and Gazette newspapers. I'm telling you, the footnotes and the book I'm trying to get out as fast as I can tells you exactly our history, where we started, the erasure, the white supremacy, the systemic tactics to thwart the slave who became free and competitive to the labor market. That's the racist technique, is that the slave, they even wanted, the unions wanted to enforce slavery again so that they didn't have to compete with the Black man who was a slave artisan. And so here we are, here's your history, here are your facts. All of this you can read, you can ask me again. And the work, all of it is collected at Stanford. I want to shout out to Stanford Libraries. All of my work is there. And I'm lecturing, I'm with universities, and I've got to take the oral tradition and make some documents, because it's going to be up to you guys to do the next leg of the work and answer the question. I'm not asking this question anymore. I know where we are, I know where we've been, and I know where we're going. And this is Cheryl Miller. Thank you, Austin. Did we do it? Yep, we did it. Let's credits to everybody who's helped me. I had an ally, Christina. Shout out Leslie Design University. She helped me with accessing archives and stuff. It would have taken me another lifetime. I have to travel to libraries. I had an academic researcher to help me. I have got, pray for me. These are all of the footnotes that are left from part 4. This is the first book. Okay, The Slave Artisan is your first Black graphic designer erased from history. So this is book number 1. I anticipate that I will be making additions and citations and revisionist historical work for a broad stroke understanding of graphic design and where the erasure of facts and our story, all the way from emancipation, the abolitionist movement, our Renaissance, all the way, all of our history needs to be inserted. And I start off by saying, just like you want to talk about the hieroglyphics in Egypt, here's your first history note. Last time I looked, Egypt was in North Africa. We're taking questions. Thank you. Did you put your seatbelts on with all of that? Kelsey?
I was about to say, you're
to put their seatbelts on.
I know, goodness gracious. As Victoria says in chat, mic drop, clap, clap. Fantastic. Cheryl, that was great. Thank you.
Yeah, and more importantly, I want everyone to know that this is not new. And so just like when we've just come through a season, people paid for the privilege of community in here in America to vote. Okay, this is not a casual Zoom that we're experiencing. Black creative this, Black ignite that, blah, blah, blah. I want you to know that I have colleagues and those who've gone on to glory, who set the path, primed the well. Prime the well is a down south kind of thing. You doing this, and no water. And somebody comes and taps and shh. Okay, it's like Carnival Cruise that's going to St. Thomas. Okay, I'm not a betting woman, but you're right there putting the quarters in the slot machine. You walk away, somebody comes with 1 quarter, hits it. Okay, there's a history and there's a price to pay. And in New York City, even the strength of my business and the popularity of it, there were players who, the Urban League and the NAACP, we marched into the Fortune 500 companies in New York to demand if we were buying your products. I was the generation of ad agencies and designers who were the first to put Blacks in McDonald's ads, Coca-Cola, the cigarette ads, the beer ads, okay? Those corporations didn't wake up, guys. They just didn't wake up and say, oh, Black folks buy our stuff, let's do ads for them. No, there was advocacy, the Urban League, National Urban League, the NAACP, they marched and petitioned into corporate America. You're gonna represent us. And when it comes to race and color, green. That's the only color that's here. So if you want our community, your ads, your documents, your corporate communications, your sales promotions, they have to reflect your audience. So there's a price, there's a history. It just didn't show up. And so I wanted you to know that tonight.
Cheryl, thank you. I just dropped a message in chat, everybody. We are open for questions. If you do have them, please drop them in Q&A. And in fact, one just came in here. So a question from Michael: how has the pandemic impacted the current social movement against injustice on top of the history you just spoke of? So how has the pandemic impacted all this?
Yeah, we're stay at home. and the ability to zoom into these communities, and many of us are being asked to be panelists. Listen, I got started and it started going like a snowball quickly. My first Zoom was with Chris Rudd, and I write about it in one of the, and he's with one of the design schools in Chicago. And he asked me a zinger. He asked me a question. I was on a panel and I answered it truthfully. He said, Ms. Miller, what is your Confederate statue and flag you're taking down? I said, oh no, this young man did not ask me this question. And just the answer rolled right on. I said, take down the Paul Rand look. He's the look of the oppressor. I've had enough of it. And the minute I said that, I went viral. And I wouldn't have been, the pandemic has put community and voices in a place where we can get out on these panels. So I was talking before we started, I can't travel to all the places. I'm not going to LaGuardia. In New York City, I couldn't do it. Okay, I've got lectures and advocacy lined up, okay, all the way now into the spring, into next fall. All right, I couldn't do it, near and far, big and small. I could not support the next leg of, I have a window, you have a window where the allies want to hear, they want to help. And so the pandemic has put me, the universe has us at attention. Trust me. If it weren't for this scenario of social unrest and pandemic, we wouldn't be meeting. Everybody be too busy. There's that crazy Cheryl Miller again. My articles, they were done by Pratt. I mean, look. This is your 1987. My story is 2/3 in. So by the time the white dominant default community looks at, oh, look who won the awards. Look at, all of your hero sheroes. Okay, like, oh, look at, and you're looking for yourself. Did I win an award? What? By the time you go through that, I'm in the back of the book. Well, I didn't know you were there, Cheryl. I said, I've been here the whole time. I wasn't important enough. My message wasn't important enough for you to read it. After you got, did I win an award? Was I published? No, white default. So the pandemic is now giving me opportunity to inspire. The bottom line is inspire the indigenous and Black designer, or the Black designer and the indigenous designer, whichever way you are, okay, to design and compete, stand up, forward in action, be competitive, and push back. Listen, I've been pushing back since I was a kid, okay? And so, only thing I can tell you is this is our time. And I have been here before, and you have to work now. You have to work now while we're at high attention. So the answer to your question is, I can Zoom. And now that one zinger, I don't have any problem with Paul Rand. I interviewed him at IBM. I just was on the design summit. I told them the truth about Paul Rand and IBM. Okay, God bless IBM. They're coming, they're sending equipment. They want me to re-record the whole webinar all over again, my keynote. Why? It was the era that was oppressive. So when I see flush left, Helvetica, the international typeface look, and so forth and so on, when I see it, there's nothing wrong with it design-wise. You better learn it. You better know it. You better be able to administer it. You better know your grid. You better know it. But what it was a disqualifier for Black designers. So what? You could know it. I couldn't work for IBM, and that's what I told them. I told them that because I was Danish, that I grew up with Bauhaus. This is my mother's kitchen sewing. Do you know what this is? A Danish design award-winning, it won its first design award, 1954. This bowl is as old as I am. I learned Scandinavian design. My mother's nuts and mints and hard candy. I'm Danish Creole. My mother's house was high-end Danish design. By the time I saw it, sophomore year, I saw myself as a corporate designer. I could have taught Bauhaus. What Black kid knows Bauhaus? How unique is that? Because my family, because of this story, I'm Danish. I'm Danish West Indian of African islands that were owned by Denmark with Ghanaian DNA, but I knew Bauhaus. But Bauhaus wouldn't let me in. So when they asked me that question, I said, take down Paul Rand.
Cheryl, we have another one here. They're kind of coming in. So the next one is about your time in art school. This attendee says, how do you look back at your time in art school? I feel like we're still hearing stories of BIPOC students today experiencing racism, sometimes coming from professors.
Oh, absolutely. That's my favorite subject.
Yeah. So how do you look back on your time?
How do I look back?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. All these lectures, I said, you better push. If you're paying tuition, whether you're on scholarship or daddy, mama scholarship, okay, whatever it is, you own your seat and you push back. And that's what I did. The first, after Miss Glassman, after I pushed back and now she's turning over in the grave, I never should have said to that little Cheryl Holmes that she'd never be an artist. She's flipping over in her grave now, okay? Let me tell you what I did to the first one. And this is what breaks my heart, is that the Room of Silence, or the Silence in the Room, the 2016 documentary from the BIPOCs in Rhode Island, the third or fourth young lady in looks like I did when I'm like, they're talking the same stuff. Let me tell you something. If you've heard my lectures, my first graphic design, my father died 2 weeks before I got to Rhode Island. I found myself a complete pivot and a turn. And I'm in the graphic design sophomore class at Micah. And the professor never gave me a critique. And I said, oh no, you're not doing that to me. I got my papa's money is paying for this seat. We're not going here. Okay, we're not going here. So what I did and what I'm telling you, oh, listen, he wouldn't give me a critique. He'd do all everybody, and back then it was, there's no whiteboard. They put it up on the chalkboard. They put it up on the bulletin board. And we'd come in, he'd see me put up my work. He'd give everybody a critique and then jump over me. I'm like, oh no. So I watched it week after week and I said, okay, I got something for you. I came in early. You'll hear me say this all over. You'll hear these lectures. Okay. I came in 45 minutes early, put my work up, left, came in with the class. So he could not associate me and the work. I got my first critique and then I pulled him over to the side. I said, why'd you do that to me? I said, I just hacked you. So it was another word, but in essence, I hacked you. I hacked you to get a critique. And you guys, I hear it. It's the same thing. Oh, that's awesome. That's cool. No, can you tell me? Listen, if somebody tells me it's cool or somebody tells me that's awesome, you get a pushback from me. You get put in your place. Awesome. Would you like to tell me the critical thought for awesome? What are the principles and the guidelines for awesome? What does that mean, awesome? Can you explain awesome to me? And what is the awesomeness of my work? Professors, do not tell a BIPOC student that their work is awesome because you do not have language to give a critique to something that you don't understand culturally. So that professor, I said, well, why'd you do that to me? Why'd you do that to me? And you know what he said to me? He said, Professor Gray, I've never taught anybody like you. I said, okay, now you tell me what that means. Because like me could mean anything, because I don't even look like what you think I am, okay? I'm the OG BIPOC. I'm a Black woman. And I've never taught, what he was saying was, I've never taught anybody who wasn't white because he didn't know what I was. I gave him his first BIPOC lesson, 1971, Micah, to a little kid who walked in who just lost her dad. And my dad left me money to go to art school. And I wasn't having it. That tuition was paid for with a price. So I'm a woman with grace, but I am going to challenge you. And I do challenge the professors to get on the right side of history with this. On the right side of history. And let's grow and learn together. Next question.
I think
Was
that's
that
all we
it?
have. I think we have, there are many more questions, but that's all we have time for. Cheryl, I think this message that you're saying here at the end of, which side of history are you going to be on, is an important one, that you're not just challenging professors, but challenging all of us. And I think that that's crucial. Thank you so much for sharing your story. There are more questions here, but those of you that have asked questions, hit up Cheryl Miller on LinkedIn. That is where you will find her. That is where she communicates. If you ask, she will deliver. I promise you.
Hey, listen, and Professor Gray, I challenge us. Okay, we can do. There's so many questions and there's so much dialogue. And what happens in my lectures, and we're here for a time frame, a window.
Yep.
I find it so important that maybe what we can do is just a listening session, because a lot of times, if we can just, I didn't have anybody, guys. I didn't have a soul to help me. And I've been giving these lectures. I've been pumping out, dare to be great stuff. Okay, go for it. This is your time. This is your season. How to. I've been pumping it out since September. Just taking this community, inviting them again, and just sound off back. Listening is real important. Well, how do you feel after all of this? Austin, how do you feel after all of this? It's like Thanksgiving dinner, a buffet, and you go, whew. It's a lot to take in. And I am definitely friend and not foe. And I've just been through it, and I don't want anyone, not a soul under my voice, to go through anything that I have gone through. It's just not fair. It's just not fair. And that's why I'm out here until I'm blessed to be seen and not viewed, vertical and not horizontal, which means until they lower me down. Okay, and my hope is glory. I'm going to be inspiring for us to grow together and no longer ask the question, where are the Black designers? So Professor Gray, if you want to have a debriefing Zoom and just tell everybody to show up, Miller's going to listen. I have talked since September. And if you just want to talk, let's talk, I'm listening. Because that's half of the game, getting your strength for this. Because we can make this change together. We really, really can. And this doesn't need to go another cycle of 50 years. It doesn't. I want the next generation to know nothing of this. Nothing. There you go, Dr. Gray.
Cheryl, thank you so much for sharing this. And everyone that's here with us, share what you've heard tonight. Right? Keep the dialogue going, keep the discussion going. Yeah. Cheryl, thanks so much for joining us at UT, at Austin Design Week. It's been a pleasure. Everyone, have a fantastic Friday night and a great rest of your weekend.
You can find me on LinkedIn, guys.
So long, everybody. Thank you.